Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 13, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. The normally wide-open and spacious 200 square meter shop front filled with barely a dozen people felt incredibly tight now. Each and every one of the people in the room could snap, or the rivalry between the Familias could erupt, and even if Seshat did have toxins from Behemoth ready to go in order to kill them all. Most likely we would already be dead should a battle between the Familias erupt if I couldn't teleport out quick enough. Well, Loki. So, what does that adorable little bauble do then? Freya asked as she threw back her hood and stepped out of the cloak with Otter taking it from her before it could hit the ground. My mind blurred. Freya's divine beauty/charm filled the room and clouded my mind before I could shake my head clear of the sight of her body glove-clad form. Loki hissed like a cat with its tail being stepped on as she pulled Rivalry away from Freya, who staggered under the full focus of Freya's charm. Oi Freya, you snooze you lose. My darling Rivalry already picked this accessory, and we are just negotiating a price for it. Loki said fiercely, making Freya raise an eyebrow in amusement at Loki's actions. But Freya finally broke eye contact with Loki and Rivalry to look at me, the maker of this whole situation apparently. So, Jake of Seshat's Familia, what does Rivalry's trinket do? And how much for me to buy it instead of her? Her gaze upon me was like a weighted comforting blanket that clouded my mind, but I refused to be enthralled by her mere presence and merely glancing at me. The weight of her charm was literally just her passively being here. I had no illusions that she was actually trying to use her charm on me, as I would have caved. Not bad for a kid new to this kind of life, Gareth laughed, seeing me shake off Freya's passive charm. I apologize, Lady Freya. But just as you wouldn't release the information on a Familia member, I shall also not disclose the names of magical items that people buy so they can keep it as a trump card. I said with my words ringing true, which made Freya nod and clap her hands happily. Very well then, I want one of everything, she said proudly, and my face twitched at the amount of work I would need to do to replace such an order. For large commissions, I do not accept money, I only accept materials, and one of your higher-level adventures will need to help me out with a quest to kill a very special monster, I said, brushing a hand through my hair as I realized that my solution to killing the scary as hell bosses was staring me right in the face with the dour face of the strongest known adventurer in Otter. Ahem. What kind of monster is it? And Freya, you can't just hog the shop by filling up his entire queue of projects. Loki shot off like a machine gun, and Freya only smiled softly, obviously caring little for Loki's words except for the beginning. Yes, Jake. Loki had a good question. Literally everyone in the room focused on me as Freya clearly was asking for an explanation of the monsters I wanted help with. I have the ability to create special monster Rexes. At my words, everyone's faces sharpened, with Ace's face freezing as her hands tightened around her sword, but seeing Seshat nodding in the background for me to continue and that she was supporting me, I continued. I can create items that will spawn bosses that once killed everyone that participated and actually harmed the monster, will get a goodie bag, I said, making quotation marks around the goodie bag part. Whoever helps me can keep the magical items that drop from the goodie bag. I won't contest or request that. But the ores and materials, I asked to be given to me in return for the high-quality excelia you gain for killing the monster, I said, making both Loki and Freya look at one another, as this went beyond me just having magical items. The issue that was stopping Aurario's adventures from leveling up was the boss situation. For levels 1 to 2, people were supposed to kill an infant dragon or something to get the excelia needed for level up. For levels 2 to 3, they are supposed to survive a monster party being dropped on their heads comprised of minotaurs and other stuff. But levels 3 to 4 is the major divider line, as the only monster that can give the high-quality excelia or situation to do so is fighting the Goliath, and that monster only spawns once every 2 weeks to once a month. To say the least, there weren't enough bosses to go around the 50,000-something adventures that kept the entire world's economy rolling. How dangerous are such monsters though? If there is more than what we can handle, won't that mean you could destroy the world? Do you even have any control over the monsters? Loki steamrolled, and I smiled as I shrugged. Well, some monsters. Yeah, they are super dangerous, I admitted, with my mind thinking about the wall of flesh and the hard mode bosses. And yes, I have no control over the monsters at all. They will rampage and kill everyone in sight, whether they be human or the dungeon monsters, which is where I was planning on summoning said monsters. You will make us stronger, Ace said, and cut through whatever Loki and Freya were about to say, and I saw even Otter and Finn nodded to her words that were the most important. Yes, Ace. Helping me kill bosses will make you stronger, and the magical items I sell will also make you stronger. Like, take that sword you're holding. It's conceptually indestructible, you cannot break it at all. Not to mention my weapons can also make you stronger, like this trident gives you a weaker version of the dive development ability. I said, showing off the trident I made, which made Finn and Alan's eyebrows rise in interest as they were both spear users. Sword Princess. Let's test the sword's durability outside. Otter said with his voice rumbling with combative intent, and in response Ace merely nodded and followed Otter as Alan stayed beside his goddess, while we all went outside to see how my simple tungsten sword dealt with a multimillion valued great sword that Otter was wielding. Come, Ace Wallenstein. Otter said stoically as he pulled out one of his large hooked great swords and held it before himself. Yes. Ace yelled, and she became a blur of motion, with each second more than a dozen full-powered swings hitting the side and back of Otter's blade that he merely used to seemingly allow Ace to get used to a very different blade, as she typically wielded a thin long sword with a bit of curve to it. Get him, Azu. Tiona cheered, with Bet likewise cheering, while Loki and Freya stood next to one another watching with great interest. Tempest. Ace yelled out, obviously kind of frustrated at Otter not even moving to dodge or more easily block her full-powered blows. With her single word, aria of magic activated, Ace was coated in a whirlwind of green winds that boosted her speed, strength, and sent ripping winds at Otter that tore apart the ground around him, but seemingly did nothing to the man as he calmly batted aside every blow Ace sent at the boas. Such a dance went on for a whole minute before Freya coughed and Otter tenses, and for a moment I felt death hang over me as Otter grabbed Ace's wrist to stop her next swing, and with Ace frozen, the mountain of a man calmly let go and stepped back and bowed to his goddess. Lady Freya, are you satisfied? He asked, and Freya stared at him for a moment. No, she was staring at his 50 million Valis sword. Otter. My dear, look at your sword. Otter did so and noticed that although it wasn't cracked or breaking apart, it still had a great number of scratches, and more importantly the edge was lightly pitted where the metal broke off or folded due to the edge-on-edge impacts the two swords had. Now please look upon Ace's sword, I said proudly, and all the adventurers with their enhanced senses focused on the simply made tungsten sword and saw that it was still flawless. No dings, no scratches, and more importantly no pitting on the edge that would ruin its cutting. It wasn't that great for channeling Tempest. But I don't have to worry about it breaking. How much is it? Ace asked me with great desire, to the point that Loki swooned at seeing such emotion from the taciturn and silent girl. Such a simply forged sword is 50,000 Valis, and that's it. I said, with even Otter staggering, as his set of swords were literally 50 million Valis, and no matter the special ability the swords had, if the sword broke in the dungeon, it was worthless compared to a sword that just didn't break. Jake, why don't you come live at the Twilight Manor? We have a nice castle and plenty of room for you to set up a workshop, and no one will be able to bully you for these priceless weapons. Loki offered, and I realized that she was offering me a place in her Familia altogether. Freya's face went cold, and I saw her lilac eyes flicker to Loki before she put back on her smile as I responded. I apologize, I have only recently joined my lady Seshat and won't be leaving her. Damn right he isn't. Seshat yelled from the window she was overlooking this whole outside event. Before anyone else could say anything, Ace just walked over to me and held out her hand with 5 coins within it, with each coin being a 10,000 Valis coin. Here, this sword is mine now, right? She said, and my lips twitched as I held in a smile at how simple Ace could be.